Hello, welcome. Thank you for making time today. I really appreciate it. I'm Rajkumari Neogy. And the very first thing I would like for you to do is to turn to someone next to you. Hopefully you don't know them, but if you do, that's okay. And I want you to share a story that was absolutely inspirational to you. You have 60 seconds, right? 60 seconds to share that moment that you went, oh. Ready? Go. Make sure that you switch. Make sure that your partner gets to share their story with you. Okay, go ahead and bring it to a close. Come on back. Come on back. I would do the clappy thing, but my hands are tied. How was that? Hard? How was that? Thank you. What else? How'd that feel? Energizing. What else? Uplifting. What else? Made you smile. Awesome. What else? You had a rush? Rushed. Yeah, it was rushed. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, awesome. So it made you feel connected. Awesome. So take a breath. Take another breath. And on the third breath, see if you can exhale longer than the inhale. Ready, go. This is interesting. So, when you are breathing, the way that you are breathing actually communicates to your nervous system the level of safety. One of the things that I do all day long with my clients is tell them to breathe. In fact, they pay me for that. They pay me a lot for me to just tell them that all day long. So I'm an executive coach. My name is Rajkumari Neogy. I'm barefoot today. It's the first time I'm presenting barefoot. My socks and shoes are over there soaking wet. And I spent 14 years in startups. I'm from the Valley. And 3 years at Adobe, and 2 years at Facebook. And at Facebook, I had the time of my life. I really, really, really did. Stu Crabbe was my boss. I adore him. The team was amazing. I had the best role on the planet for me. I was doing compliance and legal, global rollout, so education like FCPA, sexual harassment, code of conduct, all of those fun things, unconscious bias training that eventually became managing bias. But there's something very strange that was happening. Even though I was having a blast making a ton of money at Facebook, I totally felt excluded. What? So I ended up doing what very many people do when they feel excluded. What do? They run away. Yeah, I quit. Totally did. And I did run away. I went to Southeast Asia, actually, for 2 months where I ate a ton of noodles and did a tremendous amount of research around what the heck? Why did I feel excluded? And what was that pain that I was feeling? Didn't know. So I came back. I built a coaching company. I built a framework from the ground up, drawing from epigenetics, neurobiology, systems theory, attachment theory, nonviolent communication. And I wrote a book. And this is what you are going to see from the last 5 years that I've been coaching teams and individuals in all of the organizations that you know quite well. When we breathe, not everyone does always, so take another breath. When we breathe, we are actually influencing our team. If you stop breathing or are breathing shallowly, your mates in the conference room will know and do know and react accordingly. The shallower you breathe, the more you are communicating danger. And false danger is something we all know well. It's called anxiety. So, what makes a team successful for you? What makes a team successful? Yeah.
A productive tension that creates and gets things done.
Awesome. A productive tension that gets things done. Yeah. Trust. What else? Fun. Awesome.
Everybody doing their own best work.
Everybody doing their own best work. Yes. Vacation. Oh, communication and vacation. Woo! Let's go on an offsite to Hawaii. What makes a team successful is how you build relationships with each person on that team. So everything you said is yes, including vacation. But when you are on vacation, how you are doing this is essential. So, if what makes a team successful are the relationships that you are building, there's an interesting HBR article called Why Leadership Development Has to Be Done on the Job, and it talks about 60% of the workforce every single day has to interact with 10 people to do their job. You gotta be nice, okay? Jeez. What makes a relationship successful? Someone already said this in the room. Ding! So what is trust? How the heck do you know when you trust someone? How do you know? How do you know when you don't trust someone? And how do you know when you're totally sure that you're completely uncertain about whether you can trust someone? How do you know? So who's here heard of Brené Brown? Like everybody in this room, yeah. Okay, maybe one person, awesome. So Brené Brown has a really great TED Talk. She's known for her research around shame and vulnerability, and I love this. There's a 25-minute video called The Anatomy of Trust. This is such a great definition of trust for me. And the definition is, she says, trust is about something, choosing to make something that's really, really super important to us, vulnerable to the actions of someone else. What did Larissa do so beautifully today during the keynote? Is she demonstrated that very iconically, right, with the Sharpie. I love Sharpies so much. Okay. But that's cool and all. What's trust really? It's this. This is actually what trust is. There's an HBR article called The Neuroscience of Trust. Paul Zak is a neuroeconomist. Did a really awesome study. Read the article. It's super awesome. That's it. They actually used nasal spray to increase the amount of oxytocin in the bloodstream, and the results were astounding. So someone asked me when I was training at the White House, so should I just go buy a bunch of nasal spray, oxytocin, and start squirting it in my team? Sure, you can totally do that. But that's not what this presentation's about. So the article continues on to some data points, which we all love because that's what we do, data. And he talks about high trust companies, and I love this so much. When teams are more engaged, they have greater levels of oxytocin. Oxytocin is more commonly known as a bonding chemical. There is so much frickin' research on oxytocin. There is even controversial research that pulling a trigger of a gun releases oxytocin. I have coached Navy SEALs. When I bring up this data point, there is a smile on their face. I say no more. So this is important. This is actually quite important. I love how the article ends, and it's this. Oxytocin does one thing and one thing only, and it reduces the fear of trusting a stranger. Back long time ago when you started working with whoever you work with now, they were all strangers to you. Now they are not. Why? Right? Think about that. Think about that. Think about the journey that you did with them to get where you are and what chemically arose within you, in your body. When we have higher levels of oxytocin in our system, we are able to create connection faster with our relationships. Connection drives our ability to build powerful and sustaining relationships. Now, we do connection very interestingly. Done well, we come from this place. Why I will be employed for the rest of my life is because so many people in the workplace do it from here. You are either building or dismantling trust with every interaction at every moment of the day. How do you choose to engage with people is your choice. And just keep in mind how you are engaging. We witnessed Larissa in the keynote. How did you feel when Robin knocked off the pen? She actually said there was a tightness. I tightened. You bet I tightened. In fact, I got so angry I wanted to run down and be like, but I didn't because I was barefoot. So, very quickly, I would love 2 people to come down over here, please.
Wanted to check out. Wanted to check out.
What?
How was it for you?
Exciting. My heart rate was up.
Did you notice what was happening, that I was completely ignoring her?
Yes. Because I told her to take the lead and you didn't let her. I was like, come on. Yeah.
And then, so besides excited, what else were you?
Sweating.
Awesome. Thank you. And we're specifically just kidding. Okay, thank you. Thank you. How was that for you? Tense. What else? Awkward. What else? Uncomfortable. This is a fake 30-second demo. Let me just repeat that. It's a fake 30-second demo. I have cute eyebrows. I'm nice. Why are you feeling tense and awkward? Because what you witnessed triggered something in you that caused your neurobiology to react instantaneously, unconsciously, and there you are. Welcome to being in meetings where people are being interrupted, dismissed, humiliated. This was, however long this was, people engage in this type of experience all day long. Yeah? Comments, questions, thoughts?
What was the instruction you gave?
Well, great question. No one's ever asked that question before. The question was, what was the instruction I gave to everybody? And I said, you're my direct reports. Get really excited about sharing solutions you had to a problem that we're working on. We do this all day long. Sharing ideas. Question? Okay. Oh, yeah, all of that.
It just reminds me when I hear people's stories about work, how much pain and shame they are feeling habitually in their daily experience.
I run a class at Twilio called Don't Be an Asshole, and I'm serious. All we talk about is shame and trauma. Yeah. So our connection determines our engagement. So I do executive coaching. I work with teams and individuals, as I said before. And I will say that I've worked within many organizations and many, many individuals. And the data is absolutely accurate. We talk about only 28% of people having purpose-driven or purpose-oriented work ethic. There is a good 70% or higher that is shut down. Absolutely. Absolutely. And those are the people that I care about, and those are the people that I work with. So our connection drives our engagement. It was really interesting about Airbnb yesterday talking about engagement and kind of saying that, engagement was the 90s and now it's belonging. I agree, actually. I really do. And I would love to actually swap that word out with belonging. But the people that I work with understand the word engagement, not belonging. So you gotta present to your audience, I guess. So the demo was important because how you know where you are engaging is through one indicator and one indicator only. And you carry that indicator with you all frickin' day long, right? And those are your feelings. Feelings are not a woo-woo thing. I'm going to get into the science of feelings in a pretty intense way. So when you are in your nervous system, that you are fully present, fully in connection with others, excited about your team, you are in an engaged state. And there's a book called The Polyvagal Theory. Stephen Porges has done 40 years on nervous system theory. It's fascinating. The moment that you are triggered, just like the demo, you start to go down a slippery slope. Fight, flight, and freeze. I've heard that mentioned many times today. This is actually a hierarchical process that happens in the nervous system. If at first you cannot fight, then you run away, and then you start to shut down, quit, move into lawsuits. Right? People who sue are absolutely here. This young man mentioned shame. This is when we feel shame. Levels of anxiety are off the charts here. Stephen Porges calls this a place of immobilization. People go, 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 because if they shut down, they think, and unconsciously of course, that they will literally die. Right? So when we are engaged, we feel these feelings. Right? This young person was excited, but sweaty, but she was excited. Awesome. When we start to shut down, we have these experiences. How I work with these individuals when I coach them is to step their nervous systems back up the ladder, right? I was coaching someone at Google, and one day we were walking to get sweet potato fries, because, that's what you do at Google. And she was like, I can't believe I spend 50% of my time just managing people's emotion. I'm like, awesome. And then she's like, I'm about, 80% here, 15% here, and 5% here. And I was like, wow, all the coaching's working. Like that level of awareness, right? That paradoxical experience of having to be here and kind of vacillating between these states. We feel these feelings. Let's go ahead why don't we go ahead and grab these really quickly? Grab your phone really quick. Where do you go to most likely when you are stressed, right? We know sweaty is not on here, so you'll have to pick something else. But where do you go in times of duress? What's your thing? Yeah. This a lot, especially with co-founders. Nice. Thank you so much for your engagement and participation. Cool. So what is this telling you? What is this showing you? What are your thoughts when you see this? This is fascinating. This is very common, right? We talk about avoiding conflict. Thank you for being honest about this. Yeah, question, comment, thought? Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, welcome to the workforce. Yeah, welcome to how sensitive our nervous system is. How everything you do makes an impact. That these talks about authenticity and compassion and vulnerability are not these woo-woo cultural talks. That there is something so essential at the heart of where we are and who we are. There was a question here, Bob.
Yeah, it's actually kind of two questions. One is flight to me, which is my thing, but also is having good boundaries. We talk about saying no to the bad situations. To me, it's sort of a self-protective.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I do, which I've heard, and I'd love to hear more about it, but is the fawn, which is sort of the fourth step, right? I've caught myself doing that plenty of times in a toxic situation, and I start saying how
That's interesting. I would love to talk more about that one-on-one with you. I'm not sure that holding boundaries would be a flight issue. I think Larissa demonstrated this really beautifully in the last stance, that there's a power stance of being engaged and holding boundaries. You know, so here's a great example. So I was at a company, and do I say it? Do I not say it? Do I say it? Do I not say it? And chief people was coaching her, and she invited me in to come talk about trust. And I was there with her 12 direct reports and the CEO. And at one point, I was jumping up on the whiteboard, and I was writing something on the whiteboard, and I hear her yell out, "Wow, your handwriting is so shitty." I'm facing the whiteboard. Thank God. I took a breath, and I literally turned around, and I was like, "Awesome. Tell me more about what's going on for you right now." And she's like, "Well, I'm feeling really frustrated." Frustrated why? Because I brought you in here, and what you have to say is so valuable. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. Right? That's the unpacking, right? That's the boundary, and that's the staying engaged, in my opinion. Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing this. So we have our feelings because we have our values. Organizations and teams talk about our values all frickin' day long. This is Salesforce's values. We have our feelings because either our values are being met or not met. Not violated, just not met. And when they are being met, we're awesome. We're just like super awesome. But when they are not being met, things turn a corner. Our nervous system reacts. We start to go down the fight, flight, and freeze. And if this happens over time, like it did at Facebook for me, it starts to register in the brain as physical injury. It is literally as if I'm being kicked in the shin when I'm interrupted. Right? How was it for you? She was shut down? You were shut down, you said? Yeah. Her brain is like, fuck this. But what is really interesting, this is the latest research from Sarah Payton. This is her book. So much of my research comes from her, and she does a tremendous amount of research herself. This is her research. When we start to look at values, we can start to see which neurotransmitters are being impacted, secreted, or shut down. It is unbelievably fascinating. So we know that trust is oxytocin, and connection is oxytocin. We might know that pulling a trigger also might be oxytocin, but it would understand all of the shootings and the opioid addiction in this country, right? But look at this. So much of what we talk about in the cultural realm is about being seen, being heard, right? Completely ignored you. Well, the first thing you said was, "I wasn't seen." Guess what stopped secreting in her system immediately? Again, 10-second demo. Talk about autonomy and purpose. It's dopamine, right? This one blows me away. This is about self-care, self-connection. We have a problem in this country. This is endogenous, obviously, meaning internally secreted. So take a moment in the breath. Thank you for breathing so beautifully. Which one would you like more of? And I don't know if this slide is working. Oh, there we go. Thank you, slide, for listening to me. Just take a quick moment and keep breathing. See if you can also do this while breathing. It's kind of a trick. See if you can think and breathe at the same time. Keep breathing. You guys are so good about the breathing. It's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. What does this tell you? Sorry? Large spike in A. Yeah, we are hungry for oxytocin, man. That is for damn sure. Connection. So I just added 2 more because it wouldn't fit on the slide of the poll. This is also so amazing to me. Endocannabinoids, again, endo means internal. We've legalized marijuana in California, as you know. I'm barefoot, so that's my contribution. Everyone's talking about psychological safety. So benzodiazepine is another form of Valium. Our brain actually secretes Valium when we feel safe. It calms ourselves down. I mean, that's kind of crazy, right? So yesterday in the belonging conversation at Airbnb, they talked about managers and how the research around belonging is so highly dependent, or a great deal dependent, on how we are engaging with our managers. I mean, that is belonging, right? So in essence, you are a walking pharmacy. Like, you super are. Like, that's incredible, right? You just have all of what you need inside you. Just start secreting things differently. So Danny Meyer spoke at Twilio, and I had the honor of seeing him engage with Jeff Lawson, who's the CEO, and I loved what he had to say. I was like, oh my God, you're awesome. Danny Meyer, if you don't know, I was part of the Gramercy Tavern, the restaurant here in New York, which I'm going to in a few weeks. So business like life is all about how you make people feel. And how you feel impacts how your team feels. What's your name? Grace. Imagine how Grace feels every time she has to go to a meeting with me and Deb. At some point, she is going to shut down and be like, when's Deb going to be heard? Hey, Deb, can I collude with you to getting heard more in meetings? Because Rajkumari never gives you the time of day. Like, that's what starts to happen, right? These kinds of strategies in order to build relationships. So just turn to your partner. Just talk a little bit about, just for 90 seconds each, how can you show up differently and role model inclusion through feeling more? Go. Okay, start to come on back. Yes, please. Yeah. Go. Can you get the mic? Yeah, thank you so much.
In our group, we were talking about when you're giving birth, the midwives are telling you like to really focus on like good, beautiful things so that your oxytocin goes up, because if your adrenaline goes up, like it just like spirals down from there. And so we were wondering, like, is there a way to do that in like business or in like in a different context to be that intentional so that you can create that for other people?
Can you come to every presentation and ask that question? Yes, and we're going to get to that at the epigenetic piece of the presentation. I won't give away the secret sauce, obviously, but absolutely, it's all about visualizations to some degree. But we'll talk about that in just a moment. Any other points? Yes, please.
Hi again. We were talking about a lot of these chemicals have to do with sort of the connection pieces. Mm-hmm. And then I'm looking at dopamine. Like, I feel like I naturally do a lot of these things with my team around connection. Like,
awesome.
like, I'm good at that probably because of the job I'm in. Yeah. How do I role model autonomy and purpose and the dopamine aspects of our existence?
So ask that question a little more specifically, like to you. Like, what would you like to do more of?
I think that I want to think about the shadow side to the strength of myself as connection.
Yeah.
And when I ask my team what they need more of from me, sometimes they'll say, well, I love that you care about us and we need to transition and get stuff done, because I tend to hire people who are like doers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a need of theirs. So I don't know how to transition to that need in a meeting.
Yes.
Once we've done our connection work.
Absolutely. So that's going to be a fight, flight, and freeze response, and that's going to be in the epigenetic elements, and I'm happy to share that offline with you. But in essence, if are they not being autonomous and not being, or you would like them to be more of?
I want to support that need that they've expressed to me. So how do I make room for that as much as I do the other stuff?
All through empathy. All through empathy. Empathy is a bihemispheric experience. We'll talk about empathy at the end of the presentation. But when you are empathizing with someone, you are actually seeing them in the ways that they need to be seen. Empathy done masterfully is able to surface the needs and mirror that back to the individual. In that mirroring process, they are then seen. And then they will, okay, great, awesome, thank you. Okay, let's move on because we still have a lot of geeky stuff to cover, at least for me. So what are we measuring here? We all want data, we all want metrics. What the heck are we measuring, right? How do we even measure valued, welcome, respected, and heard? How do we even do that? So I do say this in all my presentations, and I work with my teams in doing this. I'm not just saying this because Airbnb is here, but Elephants, Dead Fish, and Vomit is an article that I get all my teams to understand. Right now I'm working with another company, and their tech support team. 70% of people are in India. I'm coaching about 7 people there and 3 people in St. Louis. And I'm getting them to deploy Elephants, Dead Fish, and Vomit internally. It's really, really helping to release that stress and that pressure. Just look it up, read it, it's awesome, and then tailor it for your team. It is super, super cool. So what do you do? How do you do this? How do you measure this? It's so challenging. One-on-ones, surveys, put structures in place in order to find out more, right? And then how do you do trust? So Brene Brown talks about this really beautifully. The fastest way to speed up trust in a team is to literally do this. Just do it. I will just be really vulnerable and say, God, I'm learning how to do this. I'm learning how to ask for support more and more. So, the left hemisphere in our brains is very different than our right hemisphere in our brains. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But when our values are not met, then all we know how to do is build relationship from pain. Our brains are designed for 2 things and 2 things only. They are designed to belong and to form relationships. How the brain changes is by 2 things and 2 things only. The relationships that we keep and the language that we use. 93% of our language is what? Thank you, it's nonverbal. There was a reason why I was turning away from Deb and only looking at Grace, was to communicate, you don't matter. And boy, did that work. We are always in the process of building relationship. We are always in the process of being in relationship. Sometimes, or a lot of times, depending upon who you are, we use humiliation, dismissal, shock, we ignore, because that's what we know. And if we do this repeatedly, so many teams that I work with, when I come in initially, have landed here. And this is so unfun. This is such an unfun place. Oh my God, look at this poor kid. I want to squeeze him. So this is your brain. Yeah, you finished that, didn't you? All on your own there. Left hemisphere, right hemisphere. So very quickly think about, this is not going to be a neuroscience class. It is not. But just very quickly, the left hemisphere is like a cherry orchard. It thinks binary. It's black and white. It's on or off. There's linear movements. What it does exceptionally well is it measures, it compares, it evaluates. The right hemisphere, all about relationship building. It's interconnected. It's fluid. It's like a jungle, right? It's like this. All about relationship. It's the right hemisphere that has a sense of self. It's the right hemisphere that understands where I belong in all of this. The left hemisphere has no sense of self. It just doesn't. It's great at doing way many other things. But if, and this is where I come in when I coach, there is atrophy in the right hemisphere, meaning there's not enough neural pathways where I can jump over there really quickly, and I hang out in my left hemisphere because I'm about building roadmaps and milestones and accomplishments, and my promotions are based on how much I get done and and accomplish, then this kind of gets left behind a little bit. And I forget to be in relationship with other people, and I forget to build connection, and I forget that trust is important. So I was actually coaching someone at Airbnb a long time ago, and he was fourth down from Brian Chesky, and Brian came out one day and he was like, hey, we have this huge list, and it's like this long, and it has to be done in 3 seconds, and everyone's like, no, can't be done. And then my guy was like, it can totally be done. And he did it. He totally did it. And he was promptly fired. Why? Why was he fired? Pissed everyone off. What? Operating alone. Yeah, he left bodies in the wake. Doesn't matter what you get accomplished. You can't work alone. Right? It doesn't work that way. So when we are building relationships from pain, we start to find ourselves standing in one of the 4 zones of exclusion: entitlement, victimhood, neediness, and righteousness. We are communicating verbally or non-verbally, very oftentimes verbally, one of these 4 stances. What's so interesting about the brain here is that this is a less than stance, and this is a better than or more than stance. So here, the brain is an unbearable pain. Unbearable. Depending upon your threshold of pain, you will stay there for as long as you stay there. I stayed here for 20 frickin' years. Again, unfun. At some point, the brain's like, you know what, this so sucks. I'm going to do an Anais Nin moment, right? And flips. That doesn't go there, but whatever, right? We move into a place of power over because this feels so much better for the brain. It just does. But again, keep in mind, this is coming from all of it, a place of pain. Here's what's most interesting about this slide for me is this. Underneath the hood of entitlement is worthlessness. Underneath the hood of righteousness is terrification. Underneath the hood of neediness is helplessness. And underneath the hood of victimhood is hopelessness, right? In essence, everyone feels powerless here. Most of this is unregulated right, and this is mostly left. But mostly, sort of, kind of, not really. Don't worry about it. Okay? But here's where it totally sucks. When we start to create teams from the zones of exclusion, we have labels, and we know these labels really well. We can immediately start to self-sort and identify who plays what role. Now, some of us know these roles really intimately. I'm here. But remember, the bully for entitlement feels worthless. The complainer is actually feeling hopeless. The caretaker is feeling helpless. And what's the micromanager actually feeling, even though the micromanager thinks the micromanager's right? Scared shitless. Oh yeah, that's me. Did I mention that already? Yes. Yeah, no, that's great. The caretaker is to the detriment of one's well-being. They support, and they just keep giving and giving and giving, and then they're like, I give and I don't get back, and why do I always give? And putting one's needs aside to support everyone else on the team, and they're always exhausted. Sorry? Yeah, or ways to engage in building relationships. So if you have a boss, if you feel compelled and willing, just go ahead and enter this really quickly. See if you can self-sort. Okay, no one's doing that, so we're going to skip. Oh, someone did it. Cool. What's so interesting here is when I coach, I coached a co-founder team, and they were both running less than in a massive way, not good enough. Both were men, not only one was white, the other was Asian. This one ran the bully, and this one ran the complainer. It was really interesting. Cool, thanks for playing along. We're going to just skip this in because of time. So here's why you're here. So the research is really fascinating. Rachel Yehuda is an epigeneticist. I'll give 2 case studies. She did work in 2016 around being able to witness and track the effects of transgenerational trauma by 7 generations. It's really amazing. By now, there's so much stuff around being able to track this. I was saying earlier that there's a study that showed that that worms carry memories epigenetically for 14 generations. So I think personally that we only have the instruments to measure up to 7 generations in humans right now. That's changing. That's changing very, very rapidly. Moshe Saif did a study in 2012 at the University of McGill, and it was really fascinating. He tortured some mice. They all do. And what happened is there was a trauma gene called the NR3C1 that kind of showed up based on the trauma. But the mice, the little baby mice, are super smart, and they went off to the adult mice, and they got snuggled by the adult mice. And something amazing happened to for the epigeneticists to notice is that the NR3C1 gene methylated. Who knows what methylated means? In essence, it turned off. Yeah. Well, in this case, they were just tortured, so they got a trauma. Yeah, right. Yeah. So Rachel Yehuda's work is all about transgenerational trauma being passed down epigenetically. There's so much research now. If you want more case studies, PBS is doing stuff about this. It's ubiquitous at this point, but it's phenomenal, really. Rachel Yehuda, Y-E-H-U-D-A, I think. So just very quickly. So the way that you behave, and someone else said the word ambient belonging yesterday. It was really interesting. The way that you behave and the way that your environment is shaped around you literally creates your epigenetic stance. If you go to a team, if you are on a team that is danger for you, dangerous for you, you will start to shut down repeatedly over time, and you will start to live in the freeze state when you go to this meeting. You will come out of it, but you will start to dread that meeting every Tuesday at 9 o'clock. People are like, yeah, I already have that. So this is what I do all day long. So this is the work, this is pulled from the work of Bert Hellinger. Bert Hellinger is a German psychoanalyst. He's like 85 million years old. He's still alive. I don't know how he's possible. He studied with shamans in Rwanda or Mongolia or something. And his thing is family systems. So right now, at least for today, we are still born through parents. We are this close to not being. Anyone read the research about how we just were able to make eggs out of skin cells or something? It was crazy. Okay, anyway, so y'all have this. Who here is not human? See, I told you. Okay. So just for fun, we'll just take 3 generations. So when we start to look at the epigenetics, this is literally what's happening. So grandparents, great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, you, right? This is titrating into you. Let's tag this so this is really clear. If we were to tag these mindsets, notice what begins to happen. Keep in mind, the research shows 7 frickin' generations. Just scan the room and the world 7 generations and look at all of the trauma. And there is not one person here that escapes transgenerational trauma. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So I use this framework to locate unmet needs, because the unmet needs are what's driving the cortisol of the adrenaline, right? It's putting people in fight, flight, and freeze states. I need to get them out of that and engaged in a place where they're productive and not complaining, or at least complaining less. So remember, engaged, fight, flight, freeze. This is your team. This is an actual team that I coached. These are fake people. This is stock photos. This is fake Frank. I love fake Frank. Fake Frank's awesome. Fake Frank, as you can see where he is, he's not very engaged. He's kind of shut down. I came in to this tech company, and the first thing I do is I run a 360 for everyone on the team. This was actual feedback from general counsel. Kind of a huge bummer, right? Like, who wants to go to that meeting? Not me. So I coached Fake Frank and his team. Fake Frank would come to our sessions and smirk. I kid you not, true story. And he would then say to me, this is an absolute waste of my time. But I already cashed my check, so we were all good. This is Fake Frank's best friend. And this is what's happening underneath the hood of Fake Frank. On the last day of coaching, Fake Frank said to me, I'm like, you don't even have to come to the last session, like, we're done here. And he's like, well, I have one question for you. I'm like, great, what is it? If I could be a better person, what should I do? Really? So he actually ended up hiring me personally. We worked together for about a year. Underneath the hood, he was running entitlement. What's entitlement? What's underneath entitlement? Worthlessness, nice. So what we found in the framework was that his grandfather's father died when the grandfather was 8, and the grandfather had to go to work to support his 5 siblings and mother. Oh, did I mention cisgendered white male? This guy was completely shut down. He did not understand what connection is. Oh, that's not possible. We did the repair. The repair was all about getting those oxytocins and serotonins and dopamines and opioids and all that good, yummy stuff secreting back in his system, and something remarkable happened. I started getting texts from the team saying, what the hell did you do to Fake Frank? I don't want to quit anymore. And then the CTO who did want to quit, I kid you not, invited this guy to Christmas dinner. When we shift the epigenetics of a team, we are creating safety for the team. Yeah. So is it worth doing all of this? This is an actual text from the CEO. Fake Frank was eventually fired. He was not able to move fast enough. That's why he hired me individually. But the CEO fired Fake Frank and texted me saying it went really well and added, I may have even cried a little during it. Wow, right? 90 minutes later, Fake Frank sends an email to the CEO, which the CEO forwards to me, thanking the CEO for being fired. How many of us want that experience? Like all of us on the planet. 9 months later, Fake Frank sends me a Slack screen capture from the new CEO. You're doing awesome. So language is the architect of reality. Your nonverbal and verbal communication is essential. The left hemisphere speaks words. The right hemisphere is all about modulation. It's why we don't really enjoy monotonous people, right? This is where we build relationship. This is why babies smile at cooing and cry at yelling, right? But what's so interesting is the left hemisphere speaks transactionally and the right hemisphere speaks relationally. This is where we do feelings and needs. This is where we do metaphor, vision, talking from big picture, right? This changes the neurobiology. This gets people motivated and feeling accomplished. This gets them in relationship. I have a 28-page tome that I'm happy to send to you. You can just find me on LinkedIn and say, hey, send me that tome. And I'll say, dude, here it is. The key is not one or the other. It's that balanced way of engaging. It's that ability to vacillate between both hemispheres in the moment. It's someone saying, hey, your handwriting is so shitty, and I turn around and say, awesome, tell me more. That's engaged and boundaried, right? So there's actually 3 types of empathy. This is really important. It's in the tome. Becoming masterful at 3 types of empathy is essential. There's cognitive, affective, and compassionate. I'm noticing that someone's having an issue and is shut down in the meeting. I'm starting to notice that they probably feel really shitty or humiliated. And then I partner with them on solving that, and I check in with them. 3 steps. Do it. Do it. If you can do empathy masterfully, you will have a very, very different experience on your team and within your organization. We're going to skip this just for time. The single highest driver of engagement is whether or not workers feel their managers are genuinely interested in their well-being, right? Can get this book. This book is really awesome. We're going to skip this. But what we do to create that level of inclusivity and belonging is we look not at the demographics of diversity, in my opinion, but we look at the diversity of needs for each individual. And when we start to engage at that level, it is so frickin' easy to scale. You can move mountains. Right? Okay. Whose birthday is closest to today? Raise your hand. Whose birthday is closest to today? Come on down. This is yours. Get it. Read this book. It's awesome. Even though you probably came like 30 seconds ago. You're welcome. Please email me, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would be happy to send you my 38, 28, however long it is, page tome. Thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure to have you.